Welcome to Whatsoever More or Less. My name is Jason, and I am a guy who started off studying the prophets a lot. It was really an accident. I was taking a class, several classes at ASU, and was feeling uncomfortable with a lot of what they were teaching me. And I heard Glenn Beck. Now, he was making sense to me. Not that I say that necessarily everything that Glenn Beck says makes sense to me, but I was following one of his videos on YouTube and it recommended Ezra Taft Benson. Now, I should have served my mission under Ezra Taft Benson, but I was completely disinterested in the church. I didn't go on my mission until I was 25, and by then I was serving under President Hinckley. But when I heard President Benson speak on the Constitution, it was clear to me that he was a prophet. And that's all there is to it. And this is my foundation for considering myself qualified to comment on the Constitution, perhaps more authoritatively. Perhaps. You go ahead and comment on this. Than somebody who's been to law school. I've recently listened to some lawyers who say you'd actually understand the Constitution better if you hadn't been to law school. I would like to add on top of that, you would actually understand the Constitution better if you understand what the prophets have said about it. And when you understand that, plus what the founders, especially James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, said about it, and read the Constitution a bunch yourself, it will make, I think, probably better sense to you than anything. It is clear as day to me that the document is inspired, and I am going to back that up today with John Taylor. So, we've been collecting these books. I had originally thought when I was starting this channel that I would say that the Constitution, A Heavenly Banner talk by Ezra Taft Benson was the one I considered the most authoritative commentary on the Constitution, which I still think it's very strong. But since getting these books, I've decided without the cumulative of all the words of the prophets, there are principles you're missing that each one of them points out something different. So we need all of them. So this one's John Taylor, and he's got a lot of great stuff on the Constitution, but I'm going to focus on this quote right here, the Constitution of the United States. And so it says here, I will tell you about the Constitution. I have just the same opinion of it that Joseph Smith had, and he said it was given by inspiration of God. The men did not know this who wrote it. The men did not know it who adopted it. Nevertheless, it is true. There is an embodiment of principles contained therein calculated to bless and benefit mankind. What do you think about the government of the United States as a government? I think it is a good deal ahead of most governments. But, sorry, I'll move this over just in case anybody wants to pause and view it for themselves. But I think the administrators are apostatizing very fast from the principles that the fathers of this nation instituted. It has become quite a question nowadays whether man can be preserved in their rights or not, whether men can worship God according to the dictates of their conscience or not, or whether we are living in a land of freedom or not. What is the matter? Why they are like religionists. How is it with them? They profess to believe in the Bible. They believe it shut. But when you open it, they deny it. The people of this nation profess to believe in the Constitution. They do until it comes to be applied to the people, and then they do not. That is perhaps too broad a saying, but I will say there are many who feel like this. Not all by a long way. There are thousands and tens of thousands who are imbued with the same principles as were the framers of the Constitution, and who desire to see human freedom perpetuated. We would say then, in regard to religionists, if you profess a religion to be true to it. If you profess to believe in the Bible when shut, believe it when open, and practice its principles. We would say to men who profess so much loyalty and patriotism to the government, be true to your institutions, be true to the Constitution of the United States, as we say to all our people to be true to the same. We expect the Latter-day Saints to be so, and to be subject to the law, to avoid lawlessness of every kind and interference with men's rights in any shape. And boy, John Taylor is just full of, I could read this whole thing for you, but I want to focus on this right here. So, first off, we have to come over here for just a second. Now, we've already studied the quote where President Hinckley Heber J. Grant, said that the law to go forth out of Zion, as prophesied in scriptures, is the Constitution of the United States in the last days. So that this is what's to be carried to the rest of the world for the sake of God's work. That it works hand in hand with God's work, the freedom of men, and clearly, talks on the Constitution are always closely connected with the premortal council. But now, right here, though, in this paragraph, this is what grabbed my attention, and this is why I say it's more important to know what the prophets say regarding the Constitution, then especially the Supreme Court, for example. The Supreme Court, Barron v. Baltimore, got it really wrong. And that resulted in the Saints being run out of Missouri, if you ask me. Was at least part of it. And several other things. So, right from the start, An Enemy Hath Done This is the name of one of President Benson's books. And that's hearkening to a title where a story where Jesus said, right after the good seed was planted, some bad seed was planted. That's pretty much what happened. So anyhow, here it is. I have just the same opinion of Joseph Smith. It is written by the inspiration of God. The men did not know this who wrote it. The men who did not know it adopted it. That's the big deal. They didn't know. Some of them claimed that there was a divinity about what they were doing, something like that. I think maybe George Washington, maybe Benjamin Franklin. They recognized a miracle. Somebody in there said those kind of things. But as a general rule, they just thought they were making a government. But what we are claiming, the restored Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that came about, 40 years later, right? Says, the men who did not know this wrote it. The men who did not know this who wrote it. The men did not know this who wrote it. The men did not know it who adopted it. They didn't know. But they were writing what God wanted them to. I'll later on be sharing a quote from J. Reuben Clark, where he says, it's just as much a part of the Doctrine and Covenants practically as anything else, the Constitution is. President Benson's called it akin to scriptures. President Oaks has said our belief in the Constitution's inspiration and the Doctrine and Covenants, everything it says about it, gives all members of the church around the world a responsibility to defend the United States Constitution specifically. Kind of interesting. Now, if we claim to believe in it then too, so I use the Four Corners rule is what I've recently been pointing out. I learned that that's a rule for understanding a document. Say, for example, Article 1, Section 8 that's one big sentence. So you can't isolate something like the Commerce Clause and say that you're actually studying it, or you can't isolate this or that. That's become a common practice. And honestly, if you can cross-reference the whole Constitution and read the whole thing... Sorry about that. Apparently I'm knocking things over in my own house. If you can cross-reference the whole thing and read the whole thing and understand it in full context, then that's the way to understand the Constitution. You'll find that where the application of it was imperfect by the founders, it's besides the point. The words of it are true words. It did not directly endorse slavery, for example. It did not directly endorse racism. The wording of the Bill of Rights wasn't applied only to the federal government, restrictions on the federal government only. It was written as a restriction on all levels of government. Those are true words. That is God's words right there to the people. And so again, right here, he talks about, if you believe the Bible when it's closed, when you open it, do you say, do you try to dismiss this part, explain away that part, right? Do you try that with the Constitution too? Well, we can reinterpret it this way. If you're doing that, you're messing up. At some point, your cross-referencing is going to fail. Your thorough, complete reading of it is going to fail. So the Four Corners rule is the Constitution within the four corners of it. If you read the whole thing from beginning to end and cross-reference it, it has sufficient information to understand it without any additional added information to it. And that is my stance. And I think it's absolutely true. And so, again, President John Taylor, and he's got lots of good stuff in this book. Man, lots of good stuff on the Constitution. Said that the Constitution wasn't the work of men, and the men who were doing it didn't know that they were doing God's work. That wasn't necessarily exactly what they set out to do. Not at least every last one of them. Nevertheless, that's what happened. And so, to me, my permanent stance at this point is the most authoritative commentary on the Constitution is the person who studies the Constitution a ton, who studies the meanings of the words perhaps that are clarified sometimes by somebody like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, but without understanding what the prophets have said about it, you're missing a tiny portion of it. And I would invite anybody who's not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who loves the Constitution, maybe get a copy of the Book of Mormon and start reading it, see what you feel spirit-wise, because you need to get a testimony of the prophets, and your understanding of the Constitution will even come to another level. I think somebody might say that's a bold claim, but the evidence I've seen is it's absolutely true. I've got tons more of these kind of topics coming for you guys. I hope somebody's watching them. Please do. Please pass them around. Please share them. Sometimes I feel like I'm just that annoying guy, but somebody's got to point this stuff out. The gospel is not a smorgasbord where you get to pick your favorite parts and leave the rest of it out of it. Don't leave this part out of the gospel, you guys. This is part of the gospel. Okay. All righty. Thanks for listening.